This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Hi everyone. This is a presentation that I did last year at the 2019 Primary Mathematics Conference. You can see that the title is Principles for Technology Integration in Primary and Early Childhood Mathematics. We thought it would be helpful to make this available to you all because it is really relevant in the current time when most of us are teaching online and everything like that. It has been updated slightly too, so there are a number of resources that are listed in this presentation that weren't in the original presentation. And the other thing about this presentation is it's based on a paper from the Australian Primary Mathematics Classroom. In the paper, we consider 5 principles for technology integration in primary and early childhood maths. And they are access the affordances of Web 2.0, ensure an equitable approach to technology integration, invest in professional learning, not just techno gadgets, offset procedural fluency with deeper conceptually driven learning, and use interactive devices interactively. There are some questions that have come in from various people that I'm going to try and answer throughout this session as well. So the first one is, what technology can be used to bring maths to life for learners? What are the strengths and limitations of the different technologies? And then also some tips on the best ways to implement the technologies within explicit teaching instruction frameworks. So I've been thinking about technology integration in mathematics for many years now. I was thinking about it when I was still a teacher in schools, and I guess it was my observation that the way technology was quite regularly being used, it was as a rotation in sort of a series of rotations for mathematics. So you might have an explicit teacher group where a small group of students works with the teacher. There might be a couple of worksheet groups. There might be a dice game group, and there might then be the technology group, which would be on the computer. So I guess the idea behind these sorts of rotations is that sorry, I was just checking that the recording was working, and it is, so that's fine. So I guess that the purpose of these sorts of rotations is teachers see them as a way of offering differentiation within their classes. They can set slightly different tasks for the groups depending on their ability level. But I have to say that my experience is and was that when technology was integrated in this way, that it was not very meaningful. In fact, it was quite superficial. And in these sorts of situations, generally technology at best can be seen as a way of embedding fluency or developing fluency in students, but at worst it's just a babysitter. When we think about the sorts of activities that students undertake in these maths groups that I'm referring to, often they tend to be sort of Java-driven maths games. So I just decided to Google maths games, and the first couple of math games that came up within my search, I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into now. But just before I do that, I wanted to draw your attention to this research by Lorraine Day from 2013. She looked at primary schools in Western Australia, and basically did a survey about how technology was being integrated in primary mathematics in Western Australia at the time. And you can see that by far and away, the most common use was internet. It was then the interactive whiteboard software that was being used. And then third was mathletics. So as I mentioned before, the sorts of internet sort of based activities that you would expect would be those sorts of Java-based games that I'm about to go through with you. All of the literature, or much of the literature around the use of interactive whiteboards is that they're not used to their full capacity. They're quite often used as just a standard whiteboard or as a sort of glorified projector, I guess. And also Mathletics certainly develops, I guess, procedural fluency and that kind of thing, but I'm not sure that it probably supports the development of problem solving and reasoning and understanding for that matter. You can see that the next three most common uses of technology in Western Australia at the moment were spreadsheets, virtual manipulatives, and Maths 300. So these are probably three preferred sorts of approaches to utilizing technology, and they certainly do offer more opportunity to develop things like problem solving, reasoning, and understanding. So as I said, this was the first maths game that came up when I Googled maths games. I'll just show you a bit of me playing this game, and I'll get you to have a think about the value of this game. Right. So I might just leave it there and just have a think. What is the mathematical value of these games? You might want to pause the video now, have a think about it. All right, assuming that you've come back from having paused the video and thought about sort of the mathematical value of the game, my suggestion would be that the value is not very great. We have a question like 8 multiplied by 5, and we have sort of 3 options that are given. So at any point, you can just sort of guess the answer, and you'll tend to be right. At very best, that this game develops fluency, and I would say it's more of a babysitter than anything. So I did a fairly extensive study with a bunch of Year 5 students about how technology was being used in their mathematics classroom. And I was able to take a number of excerpts from interviews that I did with them. This is one example. We don't really use we do, but we haven't really used computers for maths because we go to math group, we signed on math groups, and we take our computers, but sometimes we don't really use it because we have the interactive whiteboard and all that. But last term we had this Maths 300 and we were going to use it, but we still haven't used it. So yeah. And this was a fairly common sort of statement that a lot of Year 5 students were making, that sometimes there were intentions to utilize technology, but then when the time came, it didn't actually occur. Yeah. Here's another comment from another Year 5 student. The multiplication games are more of like games, but they don't really teach you anything because all you do is just click, click, click with the games, with the typing ones, and not really anything because you're just 7, enter. So I think that's a pretty good example of the fact that the kids themselves really understood the fact that when they're playing those sorts of multiplication games, that really it's just a method for them to utilize their time in mathematics without a lot of learning taking place. And a final comment. I remember last year kids were just going, yes, we got computers in our maths group, because they thought it was really kind of an hour off, just like secretly just doing really nothing. I don't think that comment really requires any further sort of analysis. But I think it's important for us as teachers to realize that the kids aren't silly. They understand when they're being asked to do stuff that's a complete waste of time. And that is concerning. Some observations about the most common sorts of mathematics games. They are often a lot of fun. So I think that game that I was showing you earlier, it was a lot of fun. If there's any mathematical benefit, it comes in the area of fluency. Most of these games are focused for some reason on multiplication facts. There's no attempt to develop strategies in order to develop and understand the multiplication and the multiplication facts. There's also no attempt to develop problem solving, understanding, or reasoning. They are often played successfully with no thought given to the mathematics. So as one of those students was saying, you can just sort of tap, 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 tap at your mouse or your keyboard, and you can easily have success without having done any mathematical thinking whatsoever. Just another aside, they often do include advertising, which is not ideal. And they're often integrated into large commercial programs to support maths improvement. So things like Mathletics, I guess. So this is happening despite the fact that for a long time now in the Australian curriculum, it has had a very clear statement around the use of technology in mathematics, and that is students develop ICT capability when they investigate, create, and communicate mathematical ideas and concepts using fast, automated, interactive, and multimodal technologies. They employ their ICT capability to perform calculations, draw graphs, collect, manage, analyze, and interpret data, share and exchange information and ideas, and investigate model concepts and relationships. So clearly there's an emphasis there on students creating. There's an emphasis on them engaging in critical and creative thinking, problem solving and reasoning, despite the fact that the sorts of games that I was just showing you don't offer any of those sorts of affordances. So one thing that I'd like you to note, the order of the principles isn't significant, but the fact that they each began with one of the vowels kind of made it a bit neat, a bit cute, I guess. So A, E, I, O, U. So the first is access the affordances of Web 2.0. Okay, as part of the work that I did with the grade 5 students around technology integration, we had trialled at that time it was a novel approach to integrating digital technology. So we had 55 grade 5 students, and they were all placed in small groups from 3 to 5. Ordinarily, these students were streamed into 3 larger groups, so the top achievers, the mid achievers, and the bottom achievers by their teacher. However, in the work that I did with them over a 9-week period or a term, they were actually put into mixed ability groups. Students then solved a problem that we discussed during class for an hour, online with each other asynchronously via the medium of a message board. They were provided no classroom-based support in the final 2 weeks. And that was just because I wanted to get an understanding of what sort of transfer of understanding had occurred over the previous 7 weeks. So there are lots of platforms that you can choose to accomplish this sort of thing, and I'm sure a lot of you are using these at the moment in your online teaching. So you could use Google Classroom or Google Meets. You can use things like Padlet, Moodle, SWOD, or Explain Everything. Whatever you choose, it's really important that you be able to justify the choice that you're taking. So I think too often, and especially when we're thinking about technology integration, decisions are made without a clear thought going into what is the purpose of this decision that I'm making? Why am I doing this? How is it going to move student learning in the area of mathematics forward? So I used Edmodo as the platform that I was going to sort of use, and I used it for a few reasons. Firstly, because it was intuitive. Secondly, because it allowed for the creation of those small mixed ability groups within the larger group. It also allowed students to create and upload artifacts. So they made many different paint files, Excel files, graphs to support their thinking and to display their understanding of the different problems that we gave them. It was also somewhat familiar to the students that I was working with because they had spent time in the previous year just starting to get to know how to use Edmodo. And here's an example of one of the problems. So it is sometimes said that each year a human lives is equivalent to 5 cat years. What does this mean? How old is your cat in human years? If you don't have one, pretend. Create a cat age table in Excel. Create a line graph in Excel representing the data up to 100 human years. And then the problem sort of asks them to think about other animals too, like camels and lorikeets and various other things. So here's an example of some discussion that the students engaged with in the online environment. So you can see that first they went in, they were attempting to understand the problem. So Olivia asked, what does it mean by saying how old? And Xander gives some sort of clarification. Chris suggests that we think about other animals that aren't even in the problem. And then they sort of create a strategy or they clarify. So Xander suggests you just go up by 1. And Olivia then says, yeah, maybe we should do similar to what Mr. Simons was showing us. And then put them all together. And then finally a solution is offered at the end. So I'm not really sure about the section, but I will be doing the cat years, and for the cat years it goes by 5s, yeah? So like 5, 10, 15, and so on. What does it need to go up to again? All right, so we sort of move through understanding the problem, coming up with a strategy, and then finally offering a solution. Students also created artifacts to represent their thinking. So these students used Excel to create a pictograph to show the sort of relative animal ages given a number of human years. You can't see it really well, but the first one is like a human skeleton, and then we have I think it's a cat, and then some camels, and then some lorikeets. Something that was interesting was that students started to develop their algebraic thinking through this problem. So you can see that one student used a formula as part of the process. So they knew that if they went to the human years and they multiplied it by 2, it would give them the number of camel years. So just before I move on to the next principle, I wanted to highlight a number of really good resources that I would be making use of if I was working with my students in the online space for their mathematics. So many of you would have heard of these before, but I'm just going to go through them. We have the Enrich website from the UK, which is created by Cambridge University. It has many really excellent investigations and activities. We have Resolve, which I've spoken about many times before. It's definitely an excellent resource for investigations and ideas. New Zealand Maths is also fantastic, and I see that they've recently put up some activities specifically for teachers to use in this time where their students are working online and away from school. Consensus is a really nice website produced by ABC Splash. It uses census data to create all kinds of different statistical representations of different sort of census data. So it might be to do with the language background spoken in different suburbs or states or within Australia, or it could be the sort of ethnicity of people within Australia, all of those kinds of things. But the really nice thing is that it allows students to investigate data in a really interesting and creative way. Then we have Maths 300, which has been consistently updated over the last couple of years. So despite the fact that for many years the same investigations were there that weren't being updated, in the last couple of years there are additional offerings being made there. The Maths Developmental Continuum is still available online, and if you just Google Mathematics Developmental Continuum Archive, you'll find a link that contains all of the different activities and investigations to the developmental continuum. They are, however, not mapped to the current Australian curriculum. It was created in the time of vowels, so you'll have to do a bit of work there. And then finally, we have the UCubed website, which is a site that Joe Bowler is behind. Many of you would be aware of Joe Bowler's work in the area of mathematics. It offers many really creative and interesting problems that students can work through also. Okay, so the E is ensure an equitable approach to technology integration. But I won't go everything that's there, but I will look at that quote from Livingston, which says, unless access to both computers and the internet are universal, a proportion of students may be unfairly disadvantaged. So, yeah, I think in this day and age, it really is necessary that every student, when they're working from home on their mathematics, has a device and an internet connection. If that doesn't happen, then obviously they're going to be placed at a great disadvantage. Just thinking about the way that we represent mathematics, for the last sort of 20 or so years, we've sort of focused on these three different representations of mathematics in the primary maths classroom. So concrete representations, abstract or symbolic representations, and pictorial representations. And all of this we sort of move through using the language of mathematics. There is a fourth dimension that I would like to think about, and that is the use of digital technologies. So all of us, and I was saying this before even the time of COVID and lockdown and all of these sorts of things, digital technology should be present in the vast majority of our mathematics teaching and learning, because they allow things like interactivity, dynamic representations, and we can efficiently adapt the situations when the students are engaged in digital technologies. Some people might ask the question, how can we achieve equity with limited funding? There's a number of ways that you can go about doing this, but one simple solution is to invest in Raspberry Pis. And Raspberry Pis are a single board computer, which basically means that they have everything that a normal computer has, but all of it is sort of contained within one single credit card sized board. So they have a removable SD card where the operating system is housed and things can be saved. And the SD card, has an operating system installed on it, which would be some derivation of Raspbian. And Raspbian's a Debian Linux based operating system. So it's a bit different to sort of your Mac operating system, your Windows operating system, but it's a very simple graphical user interface. It's not that hard. The reason that we think that it's probably a good idea to think about the use of things like Raspberry Pis is that the Raspberry Pi Foundation is a UK-based charity that works to put the power of computing and digital making into the hands of people all over the world. We do this so that more people are able to harness the power of computing and digital technologies for work to solve problems that matter to them and express themselves creatively. So they're very cheap, and that sort of makes them accessible for a large number of people across the world. What do you need to run one? So you need the board itself, you need a USB mouse, USB keyboard, you need some sort of screen, whether that be a TV or a monitor, an HDMI cable to connect the board to the screen, a micro USB power cable to supply power, and an SD card, as I said, to house the operating system. This is what the Raspbian operating system looks like. You can see it's a graphical user interface. It looks quite similar if you're someone that uses Windows, although it will take some sort of work to sort of understand it and to be able to utilize it to its full capacity. The Raspbian operating system also comes with a number of pre-installed helpful applications. So it has Python editors, so code editors, and text-based code editors, and that's sort of, that would be at the very end of primary school that you might be looking at something like Python. But it also comes with Scratch pre-installed, which is a block-based coding approach, which is something that you might look at for your teaching of primary mathematics, because the coding of block-based coding really does help to develop algorithmic thinking, which is now required in our Victorian curriculum. Raspberry Pis aren't the only single board computers. We've got a selection here. So we do have a Raspberry Pi here. It's got a RGB LED matrix header on top of it, which allows for interesting visualizations. Here we have a Raspberry Pi with a Grove header on it, which allows us to connect all kinds of sensors to the Raspberry Pi very quickly and easily. Here we have an NVIDIA Jetson Nano, which is specifically a single board computer that's designed to allow for us to explore different elements of artificial intelligence. And then we have an Asus Tinkerboard, which again has a number of advantages. For example, if you look at the pins, they're color-coded so that you know what each of the pin is going to allow for in terms of input and output. Here are just some applications of those RGB matrices that I was showing you before. So kids will have fun sort of working through and coding their Raspberry Pis to create these sorts of interesting displays. Another application, as I said, the NVIDIA Jetson Nano is a really nice platform single board computer to allow for the development of artificial intelligence. So here I've created a robot or a jetbot that is sort of a vehicle that I've made with the NVIDIA Jetson Nano as the brains. But it's the basis of an autonomous vehicle, and certainly we need to think about things like artificial intelligence in order to be able to get autonomous sort of capabilities with our vehicles and our robots. Something else that if we're thinking about artificial intelligence is that you can create a Google voice kit using a Raspberry Pi. So here we see a voice kit that I've created, and it's just a bit of fun listening, I guess, to what's possible with the Raspberry Pi and the Google Voice Assistant.
Okay, Google, what's the weather like today?
Currently in Melbourne, it's 61 and cloudy. Today, it'll be cloudy with a forecast high of 73 and a low of 59.
Okay, Google, what's the weather like in Freehold, New Jersey?
Right now in Freehold Township, it's 63 and clear. The forecast tonight is 53 and clear.
Okay, Google, what's the square root of 256?
Square root 256 is 16.
Okay, Google, what's the cubed root of 1024?
Cubed root 1024 is approximately 10.079.
Okay, Google, what's pi?
Here goes. Feel free to tell me to stop when you've had enough. 3.1415926535897932238462643383273.
Okay. And you can take sort of the idea of artificial intelligence as far as you want, really. Here we have a smart dollhouse that's created by a single board computer.
and event house. This is interactive gesture recognition, can activate functional items such as lights, fan, shutters, and also TV. So now I will demonstrate you how to do that. Now I will turn on the amp and Y. Maybe it's a little hot, I want to turn on the fan. Faster speed. Now TV. Okay, shutter. Okay, all on. Now I'm leaving home, so I close everything. Thank you.
So you might ask why Raspberry Pis. They allow for sort of equity because they're cheap. The bare bones approach allows learners to actually see what the various components do and they work within the system. Easy connection of sensors means that we've got the capability of many mathematical applications. Raspbian's open source and all the software it comes with is too. So that includes, as I was saying before, Scratch, Python, editors, Minecraft, Sonic Pi, which is a music coding software, LibreOffice, which is a free alternative to Microsoft Office. Another great thing about Raspberry Pis is that they have the things I showed you before, which are general purpose input-output pins, which means that we can do a lot with robotics. We can connect sensors and data loggers, and there are also artificial intelligence applications, like I was saying before. You can also get more student-friendly versions of Raspberry Pi. And so in the background here, you can see a PyTop, which is a much easier sort of starting place because all of the equipment it comes with it and it's all made very simple to use. I is invest in professional learning, not just apps and techno gadgets. There's been an argument by Nice that for technology to become an integral component or tool for learning, science and mathematics pre-service teachers must also develop an overarching conception of their subject matter with respect to the technology and what it means to teach with technology, technological, pedagogical content knowledge. So it's no good just having the equipment. There has to be an emphasis within schools on actually how to make best use of that equipment. Offset procedural fluency with deeper conceptually driven learning. So conceptual understanding can be provided following the advice of Harrington and Curvin. So we need to make sure that authentic contexts are used when we're integrating technology. There need to be authentic activities. We need to provide access to expert performances and the modeling of the processes. And that can happen with videos that you might create for students online. We need to support collaborative construction of knowledge. So the online environment should allow for students to work together in a collaborative way. We need to promote reflection to enable abstractions to be formed. So how are you having students reflect and be metacognitive of their learning in mathematics through utilizing technology? Promote articulation to enable tacit knowledge to be made explicit. So really do have your students communicate their newfound understanding, whether that be synchronously or asynchronously. Provide coaching by the teacher at critical times and scaffolding and fading of teacher support. So again, just like with in-class teaching, it is super important for the teacher to make themselves available to scaffold the students in the online environment. Provide for authentic integrated assessment of learning within the tasks. So think about how the task itself can be used as a method for assessment. Are you going to create some sort of assessment matrices to go along with it? Are you going to look at the development of mathematical vocabulary as the students go through the activities? But do think about authentic assessment. So focusing on abstraction algorithmic thinking in the Victorian curriculum. So one of the big things that utilising technology, like, for example, a Raspberry Pi allows for, is the development of algorithmic thinking. Joe Blann and I wrote a paper last year, and we sort of defined algorithmic thinking this way. With its origin in mathematics, algorithmic thinking refers to logical sequence processes that together create a desired outcome. Algorithmic thinking in relation to technologies has developed concurrently with computer programming and the microprocessor. At its simplest level, algorithmic thinking can be seen as 2 + 2 = 4. However, for those of you who have seen the Boston Dynamics robots at work before, you will have seen that algorithmic thinking can be far more sophisticated than that also. So some things to think about in terms of algorithmic thinking. Focus on helping students to develop their algorithmic logical thinking. It's not the same as having students memorize algorithms, like the sort of thing that we in the past used to drill into students around vertical addition algorithms and things like that. Algorithmic thinking comes up in both the mathematics and the digital technologies curriculum. It's not the same as coding. It's the thinking that goes behind the coding. There are 4 facets to algorithmic thinking, and they are design thinking, so thinking through the different design decisions of a series of code that is going to be produced. Decomposition, so breaking down a problem into component parts. Pattern recognition, so thinking about the way that trying to identify patterns within sort of code that could be helpful, and then also abstraction, so taking a real world concept and breaking it into some text-based or block-based code. So here are some key terms if we're thinking about algorithmic thinking. I'll just let you read through those. Okay, a final key term is branching, and branching occurs when an algorithm makes a choice to do one or two of two or more actions depending on sets of conditions and the data provided. So if we think about, for example, testing out whether a light is broken, to test the light, we firstly ask the question, is the light on? If it's not, is the switch turned on? If it's not, then turn the switch on. If the light is on, yes, it's working. But then we can sort of look at the various different ways that the algorithm branches to decide whether or not the bulb might be blown, or, for example, an electrician might be required. So here are the content descriptors from number and algebra that cover algorithmic thinking in the primary levels. So you can see that at a foundation level, all that students are required to do is to follow a short sequence of instructions. Whereas at a Year 6 level, students are required to design algorithms involving branching and iteration to solve specific classes of mathematical problems. In the digital technologies curriculum, there are descriptors that cover sort of 3 or 2 levels. So you can see the same content descriptor covers foundation to 2, and that is follow, describe, and represent a sequence of steps and decisions needed to solve simple problems. And then at 5-6 level, design, modify, and follow simple algorithms represented diagrammatically and in English, involving sequences of steps, branching, and iteration. Approaches to developing algorithmic thinking. One approach that you can take is with codable robots. And this is relevant to early childhood and all of the primary years. The task can be scaled up to be more focused on shape and location. Some principles that we should be aware of if we're thinking about codable robots is allowing the students opportunities to experiment, really focus on the ideas of verifying and debugging their code. They need to make sure that they're recording and representing their code, not just trying to remember it. They can compare and discuss with each other, and they can evaluate and generalize. Here we have a a 4-year-old student who is beginning to learn about how a codable robot works. In this case, we have a Bebot.
So Gracie, what are you going to do?
I'm going to press it going forwards and backwards.
Okay, and what are you going to do next?
Now I'm going to make it go straight and then turn right.
Okay, how would you do that?
So we turn through the straight button and then do the right button.
The left button.
Now go.
Why did it do all those extra steps? What should you have pushed first?
The cross button.
Okay, you want to show me? Which button?
This one.
Now what would you like it to do?
Go turn left and then go backwards.
Okay, you show me how you do that. That's right, yep. And backwards. Very nice. What would you like it to do now?
I would like it to do zigzags.
You show me. So turn right and go straight. It did it. Well done.
So just have a think about the questioning that the adult there used. She used really nice open questions to allow the student to do the thinking rather than sort of giving away, I guess, solutions to the student through her use of questioning. So here we have an example of how algorithmic thinking can be applied using a program called Scratch. So Scratch is a coding language. And you can see that a series of block-based code has been put together in order to represent the life cycle of a frog. So there's a number of areas of maths that this develops aside from algorithmic thinking. Students need to have an understanding of angles to be able to do this successfully. They need to have an understanding of sort of iteration and repetition and looping in order to be able to solve this. And also, I mean, there are some cross-disciplinary areas that they have to understand here too. So obviously, understanding the life cycle of a frog would come from biological science within science. Then we, from sort of robot-based coding to block-based coding, we then move to text-based coding. And here we have a bit of Python code that allows us to create a hexagon. So we can see that we've defined the drawing module, which is called a turtle, as Jim. And we've said that for everything in the range, for the next 6 iterations, we want Jim to go forward 100 spaces and then turn left 60 degrees. And we want it to happen 6 times. And then, so yeah, just before I show you this video, I want you to think about how you might alter that code to actually create a decagon. Okay, yeah, so if you changed the 6 to a 10, and Bruce's turning angle to 36 degrees, you would be right. And then if we want to sort of go another step further, we can think about the following code. Have a look at the code that I've put here and try to imagine what the output will be. Okay. We can also change various things. So you can see there that we've changed the background color here to black. We've also made each of the lines within each of the hexagon a different color. So we've got red, green, purple, orange, blue, red. So again, have a think about what the output will be. And here we go. And then there's a final addition there. Let's have a look what the outcome will be. Okay, so Victorian mathematics curriculum links. So certainly there's areas of geometry that we're covering there. So describe translations, reflections, and rotations of two-dimensional shapes. And then at year 6, investigate with and without digital technologies, angles on a straight line, angles at a point, and vertically opposite angles. Certainly, yeah, there's lots of measurement and geometry that doing that activity that it's also developing algorithmic thinking allows for. Okay, and then we have our final principle, which is use interactive devices interactively. So this looks like a pretty nice display, I have to say. It's from a teacher's classroom that I was in towards the start of last year. There's only one problem with it, and that is that the display is covering up the entire interactive whiteboard. So if you have an interactive whiteboard, ensure that you familiarize yourself with it and you utilize it to its full capacity. So in 2007, Zeffenberg and Lerman raised questions about how the interactive whiteboards were utilized within the classroom. They were really quickly embraced, so we ended up with a large number of them in classrooms across Australia. But Zeffenbergen and Lerman point to teachers' reliance on pre-prepared packages and lessons for the interactive whiteboard, and the adherence to these lessons limiting teachers' adaptation to their students' particular learning needs. They suggest that the seductive quality of the device can capture students' attention in the short term, but in the long term, it probably isn't going to improve learning. Unfortunately, since that time, there's been further research. So we've come ahead 10 years since that publication, and Sheffield still reports the reluctance of primary elementary school teachers to move beyond the unidirectional use of an interactive whiteboard as purely a data projector. Little use is made of their interactivity, which is the most potentially transformative capability. So what does interactivity look like? I think that we've probably had a look at these videos before, but we'll just have another quick look at them. And I want you to think about, what is the technology offering us here? Is there anything that we can do that would not be able to be achieved without the technology? And are there other factors that enhance how effective the tool is?
We're going to count by twos. I just counted by tens.
Very nice.
To 100, and it's kind of like a bummer's pattern. All of the other teams aren't that special because we can make these kinds of patterns with those colours from bombers.
Why is it a bomber's pattern?
Because bombers is red and black.
Oh, is that going to be the pattern? All right, I need to be able to see. All right, off you go.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 19.
That's not 19, Bubs.
Oh, but we're going to have to start again now.
No, keep going. You're all right. Keep going. Keep going.
I'm just going to add 20.
20, good. What's the next one?
Okay. 22, 24.
Okay, so yeah, just have a think about those questions that I posed. Okay, and then we move on to another example of the use of this particular iPad applet, which is called Hundreds Board. And again, think about the questions that are on the right of the screen.
So we're counting to 200.
Okay, from what? What are you starting at?
101.
Oh, very nice.
101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, and 109.
Okay. And then we can sort of contextualize our mathematics by, and we're going to use this book because I think it was a book that was used across Australia for National Reading Week last year, Alpacas with Maracas.
Alpacas with Maracas by Matt Cosgrove. This guy is called Macca. He's an alpaca. He likes eating pickles and he loves getting tickles. That guy is called Al. He's Macca's best pal. He's an alpaca too, with a shaggy hairdo. Al has a big heart.
Okay, it's probably enough of that. So how is the technology enhancing learning? Oops. So we'll just have a look at these videos.
74. Wait, 72. 76. 80.
No, don't use those ones. Use the next green, clear one.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I love Twinkle Twinkle. Sing it for Grandma. Strum your guitar.
80.
84.
Ready? Twinkle Twinkle.
88. 82.
Now, what is it?
92. 96.
Okay, and then we sort of bring the context in.
Lila, for 3 alpacas, how many legs would it have?
12.
12 legs, good. All right, if you had 8 alpacas, how many legs would it have?
32.
Very good. I
And finally, the last video.
want to ask you a question. If you had 100 legs, how many alpacas would you have?
5 alpacas.
Not 5.
Alpacas.
Good. How do you know?
Because I counted all the counters, and that told me that all the alpacas. Well, I can't explain it, so for now, I'm just gonna say that I counted all of the counts.
You counted all of the counters. What do the counters represent?
It represents how many legs some alpacas have. So, like, one alpaca had 4 legs.
Yeah.
So, that's what it does.
And what about 5 alpacas? How many would they have?
5.
No. 5 alpacas wouldn't have 5 legs.
I forgot. So,
4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many legs?
20.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So just a summary. Cultural change is key if we're going to move from superficial use of technology to much more meaningful use. When integrating digital technologies, think about how you will develop all 4 of the proficiencies. If your use pretty much is heavily weighted towards fluency, then there's obviously a problem. Ask the question, do the students have opportunities for critical and higher order thinking? All decisions taken when integrating technology in primary mathematics should be carefully examined. High quality professional learning is key to improvement in this area. A primary teacher or leader should be easily able to answer, citing a range of evidence why they have chosen to utilize technology in the manner that they have chosen. So yeah, justify decisions at all times. If you or your school want to know more about any of these ideas, you're always welcome to contact me here at duncan.simons@unimelb.edu.au. Thanks for listening. Some references. Okay.